Hi, I'm Ruth. Today, I want to share a story that still weighs heavily on my heart. The story of how parents can give everything to their children, only to discover, in the end, that love is not always returned the way it should be. I was raised in a home where sacrifice was a daily language. My parents were not wealthy. My father worked construction, his hands rough and calloused, sometimes bleeding from long hours with heavy tools. My mother scrubbed floors and washed laundry for others. They came home tired, but they never let me feel unwanted. They believed that being a parent meant giving, even when you had little to give. I remember my father saying, "Hard work may not make you rich, but it keeps your heart clean." My mother added, "People can take your money, but they can't take your honesty." Those words became the foundation of my life. They taught me that love is proven through sacrifice, not through words alone. When I became a mother myself, I carried those lessons with me. From the moment I held my son in my arms, I thought, this is it. This is the purpose of my life. Every decision I made, every dollar I earned, every hour of sleep I lost, it was all for him. When he was little, we didn't have much. I stayed up late sewing his school uniforms because buying new ones was too expensive. I skipped meals so he could have more milk. My husband worked long hours at the factory, his back aching every night, but we never complained. Instead, we whispered to each other, "It's worth it. He'll have a better life than we did." Vacations? We never took them. New clothes? We never bought them for ourselves. Every spare penny went toward his books, his lessons, his tuition. We believed with all our hearts that this was what parents were meant to do. There was a kind of pride in living this way. When neighbors saw him doing well in school and said, "You must be proud," we would smile through our exhaustion and answer, "Yes, very proud." I remember nights when he had fevers. I sat by his bed, wiping his forehead with a damp cloth, whispering prayers into the darkness. My own body was shaking with fatigue, but I stayed awake until the morning. The next day, I still went to work. I still cooked dinner. That was love. That was sacrifice. As he grew older, our sacrifices seemed to bear fruit. He was bright, ambitious, full of dreams. Teachers praised him, neighbors admired him, and every time he brought home a good report card, I felt like I was flying. Graduations were our moments of victory. I can still remember the way he walked across the stage in his cap and gown. My husband squeezed my hand so tightly I thought my bones would break. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they weren't from sadness. They were from joy. This is why we worked so hard. This is why we gave everything. When college came, we scraped together money we didn't have. We took loans, we sold jewelry, we even skipped heating bills in the winter just to make sure tuition was paid on time. When he moved to the city for his job, we sent him money each month, even if it meant eating rice and vegetables for weeks on end. Each envelope we mailed was heavy with love, though it only carried a few bills. We told ourselves, one day, he'll remember. One day, he'll come back and care for us the way we cared for him. But slowly, things began to change. At first, it was small. Phone calls that became shorter. Visits that grew less frequent. Conversations that felt rushed. We told ourselves, he's busy. He's young. He's building his life. Then came the requests. "Mom, Dad, I need help with rent." We sent money without hesitation. "I need help with a car." We borrowed from relatives to help him. I need help with my business. We mortgaged our small house to give him a chance. Each time, we told ourselves, this is love. This is what parents do. And each time, we gave without asking for anything in return. But when our health began to fail, when my husband's back gave out and I began needing expensive medicine, the tone of his voice changed. He said, I'm busy. He said, I have my own family now. He said, I can't keep giving. The words hit me like stones. I wanted to shout, we gave everything. Don't you see? But the words stayed trapped in my chest. The day that broke me was when he suggested we move into a care home. We had always dreamed of our old age filled with family. Children running through the house, grandchildren laughing, dinners filled with noise and joy. But instead, my son stood in our living room and said, it would be easier for everyone if you were looked after by professionals. For a moment, the room spun. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. This was the boy I had carried for 9 months, the boy I had prayed for, the boy for whom I had sacrificed my youth, my health, my dreams. And now, to him, we were nothing more than a burden to be managed. Worse still, he began asking about inheritance, about property, about what would happen when the time came. It felt like he was already counting our days, as though our only value left in his eyes was what we could leave behind. My heart cracked in ways words cannot describe. We stayed in our home, but the relationship was never the same. Calls became rare. Holidays passed quietly. Birthdays were forgotten. I marked the calendar, realizing that entire months had gone by without hearing his voice. At night, I sat by the window, staring at the street lights, whispering to myself, where did I go wrong? I tried to feel anger. I tried to feel hatred. But a parent's heart doesn't work that way. Even when betrayed, it still longs. Even when abandoned, it still hopes. I remembered the nights I nursed him through sickness, the mornings I packed his lunches before my own, the sacrifices that filled my life. And I wondered, does he ever think of those moments? Or am I just a shadow in his memory now? Years passed. My husband and I grew older, our bodies weaker. We leaned on each other for strength, but loneliness lingered. One afternoon, at the grocery store, I ran into an old friend. She told me how her daughter visited every week, how her grandchildren filled her house with laughter. I smiled and congratulated her, but as I walked away, my chest tightened. Why not me? Why not us? Then, almost cruelly, I saw my son at that same store. He was with his wife, his children. He saw me. For a moment, our eyes met. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Oh, Mom, how are you?" I wanted to ask everything. Where were you when I needed you? Why didn't you come back? Why did you forget us? But instead, I smiled politely and said, I'm fine. Inside, I wasn't fine. Some wounds never heal. They fade, but they never disappear. Life doesn't always repay sacrifice. Love doesn't always return in equal measure. Sometimes, parents give everything, their time, their health, their money, their dreams, only to find themselves standing alone in old age. And yet, I don't regret loving my son. What I regret is believing that love always guarantees love in return. This is not a story of triumph or glory. It is simply my story. A story of being a parent, of giving without measure, and of learning the painful truth that not all children remember. But I hope one day, things will be different. I hope one day, children will pause and remember the sacrifices made for them. I hope one day, no parent feels forgotten or left behind. Thank you for watching. Please like the video and subscribe for more stories like this.